So when it comes to pitch, there are very few instances that I would say someone is incapable of learning to sing.
Just the idea of if there's a medical or some type of deformity or something that's physically holding you back, there are those instances, but they're very, very rare. Even a physical disability can be overcome. Even when the doctors are telling you you will never be able to do this again, that can be overcome. If you think you have some sort of disability holding you back, rethink that. It is so rare that you're going to be held back. So rare. And it might be harder for you, but it's not an impossible thing. It just takes longer.
So I have a student that I actually just taught them yesterday, and they are having some difficulty specifically with consistency of pitch.
Okay.
I noticed that when I'm working with them and I play, and you might not be able to hear that, but I play the scales with them. Okay, cool. When I play the scales with them, they're usually able to lock in, but it's when I leave that up to their own devices, and then they say, like the first
internal
pitches,
compass.
Yeah, exactly. And then the first pitches are great, and the last pitch is great, which is usually what I'm thinking about. But it's the middle. I'll hear like a or something like that,
I hear it a lot. Wow, you're playing flats? That's
I don't know why I just went to E flat. No reason. Just where I defaulted.
So I'll do this a lot. I'll be like, okay, let's, because every now and then we do scales. I'm not a huge fan of doing scales, but with some of my students, I need to. Right? There are those instances where they want certain types of agility and stuff.
Right.
And the slow movement through the pitches. So I'm like, okay, let's go over the bridge. So I'm like, okay, let's sing. Or I'll do like track release.
Yeah.
Or just going up. And they go, I'm like, okay, let's do that.
Right.
They go, I'm like, well, that was minor, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I encounter that all the time too, is like, and I'll say the same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, you're singing the notes, and I'll play, and then they're like, and I'm like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah, switch it to a minor.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that have a hard time, even after years of doing it, man, have a hard time without the note reference right there, without being able to hear like almost a guide track in a way. Even if it's just chords, they hear a reference to pitch in context of something else. So that internal pitch, it's just different. It's a since pitch is mostly a listening skill, it's mostly what you hear in your head. And over time, learning to hear it a split second before you sing it, right? Very minute split second before you sing it. But not everyone has that.
Yeah.
And that takes a long time to build up unless you have a more natural intuition towards it.
So what I've had them doing, and this is what I've told most of the students that I hear struggle with this, is literally honestly what you just said, which is, pitch is not it's not an instinctive thing for some people. For a lot of people, if you don't have a guide, it's hard. That's why most singers sing with a track. And I'll just say, just practice slowly working through it.
Yep.
And just
that's always good advice, by the way.
Okay.
To slow it down, because it gives you more time to adjust.
Right.
Are they using a pitch meter as well when they practice on their own?
No. I've actually avoided doing that myself because from my perspective, I feel like it makes us really internalize and think too hard. But if they are worried about pitch, I can definitely see why that would be a huge benefit.
Yeah, if you're working on pitch specifically.
Okay.
And I would say if they're taking it slow, that works really well.
Okay.
If they're trying to learn a melody, if it's like 4 or 5 notes, they're screwed. When trying to read a pitch meter and remember what it was supposed to be. If they're doing what I do with a lot of students, I'll start with 2 random notes. Play it random. That was a 5th. I didn't even mean to do that. But let's say we do. I'll not look at all. There you go.
Yeah.
It's actually, you remember it. You're hearing that in your head.
Right.
But for most students, like, okay. they're looking at that pitch meter, looking at it, even if it's a guitar tuner on their phone.
Right.
It's like, okay, I got that first note. That they looked at it when they were playing it randomly. So no, that's an F and a G sharp. I think. Yeah, it's a G sharp.
Nice.
So like, okay, that was an F. I'm like, there you go. So without playing it back, they have to get to the notes.
Interesting.
And then maybe 3 random notes. But do 3 totally random notes. That you can still keep in your head, remembering what the notes are supposed to be while you're watching the pitch meter. Once you get up to 4, you're just doing a melody.
Yeah.
You're going to be way better at it. You may just need to slow it down, like you're talking about. Just slow it down, and you'll get it. There's actually another side to that I find really interesting. That I don't know if that's what's going on with your student, but I've definitely seen it. Let's say I'm going. That's a song, a still song, so I can use it.
Okay.
So, come with me, or take my hand and come with me. Your wildest imaginations. I don't even remember the song now, man. But but she was going like, and singing along with it. Like, take my hand and come with me, and doing stuff like that, where it's like, okay, trying to find the right note so I can sing it. And what was amazing is I finally got her to just go. It's like, okay, you can't play chords because you're a guitarist. You're not used to playing the piano.
Right.
To just pick out a bunch of chords all of a sudden, even if you're reading them. So let's play bass notes and let's simplify the song. Because this one had a couple of key changes. Like, let's just go 2 chords because that's mainly what's being played. So, take my hand and come with me. And she got it immediately.
Hell yeah.
Because she's having to rely on the internal pitch correction rather than trying to keep up with what she's hearing as a guide track.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
At the same time, trying to play the right notes. That's so that could be a thing too. Hearing it in context, even those are just bass notes. Yeah, whatever.
You're good.
Show you the world, your wildest imaginations come unfurled. I'm just playing a bass note.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I feel like there's definitely a natural progression to that where like you were saying, like you started by just playing the notes.
Yeah. It's G minor, E flat. Yeah. I'm not hearing all of it. Hardest. I'm not. It's starting to cut out when you're not talking.
Oh dang.
So say even that. There are a couple things in that song just to show there where I'm going to G minor for the chorus, and it's going. I'm playing a second. That's the melody.
Yeah.
Welcome to your inspiration.
Nice.
And it's that. I don't know. It's different, but you're still having to hear it within the context of the song.
Yeah.
And so you're not constantly second guessing by being like going back to the scale. Let's go to a major scale on G. You're not thinking. You're having to figure it out the whole time. It's good to do that if you're doing it really slow.
Right.
But when you just want to sing the scale, maybe knowing it's major.
Yeah.
Well, just play the first and the third.
And that's been my experience.
Now I've got it.
Yeah. Well, and that's been my experience in learning it, man. And then that's like that's a very music school kind of approach to it, because that's been my experience in that if I had to train myself not just to be able to follow along to something, but like if I think I'm trying to sing a major scale, that's way too low for me. I don't know why. Okay, now I want to sing minor. I have to.
And that just comes through. You're hearing it in your head.
Right.
That's the point, and you trained yourself to do it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your student, if it's pretty bad, just do 2-3 random notes on a keyboard or whatever, and even on guitar. Do they play an instrument?
Yeah, I know they're a drummer. But and they play
I mean, a real
keys.
instrument. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrible.
Shots fired. Ha! No, I'm kidding. But no,
they
play.
can mess around on.
Yeah, they can mess around the piano.
Even if they have piano tracks, they can slow it down. If they're whatever. Yeah. The idea is watch the pitch meter while you're playing it, and then sing it back. Don't do it at the same time that you're singing. It's a lot harder. Actually, you're distracted.
Well, and something I would like to even point out, and especially in case like they're listening right now, like their pitch is not bad. They think it's really bad. And I constantly assure them to say, like, you know, like, first of all, especially with scales, like, it's the range a lot of the time and the comfort of the voice that we're really focusing on. So as long as those first pitches and those last pitches for me, I'm like, if those are solid, we're good.
Yep.
And his pitch really isn't that bad. But I think there definitely is an internal thing. So if he has something to actively work on that he's seeing progress in, it'll help him to focus on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would see how they do when hearing it more in context rather than keeping up with a guide track. Just see how they do. I know if they keep going minor, they keep getting kind of the middle of it off.
Yeah.
You're right. They need to slow it down and make sure that they're on pitch.
Yeah.
It's just a lot slower. Honestly, when learning melodies, it's the same way. Slow it down.
Yeah,
when you're struggling with your bridge, or you're struggling with hitting a wall, slow it down. Like
I say it so often.
It just helps.
And I feel like
another thing I want to address about pitch, since we're talking about it too, is if you have a student who is way off pitch, I say this. Let's talk to the listeners. Let's talk to if people are listening to this. If you're way off pitch. What I've seen over the past 10 years of teaching is way off pitch means you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
When I'm like, okay, let's sing, hey, and you go, hey. Like, well, no. Okay, we're going to have to learn to listen to pitch and correct your voice and start with one note at a time. Yeah. That's going to take some time. It's a listening skill. But if I'm going, hey, and they go, hey, I'm like, you're in harmony. You're hearing something. Yeah. You're hearing pitch.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like you're just singing the wrong pitch.
Yeah.
So that's usually just again a matter of hearing the right pitch. It takes some training. It's easier to train. It's not like learning from the ground up, but that means they're actually able to hear harmony. They're just not used to singing in the right pitch. So I bet if you play it lower, they're more likely to sing in pitch. The other thing is if I go, hey, and they go, hey, like, that's actually close.
Yeah.
That's really close. So that's not hearing the pitch. It's not even that they can't sing the pitch or are unsure about it. It's that they're not placed correctly.
And yes.
They're a little sharp or a little flat. They're not placed in the right spot to sing that clearly.
Yeah, pitch. I feel like people, especially, I feel like I hear it more from non-singers than actual singers, because we singers know what it feels like when we have a struggle and then like we hear like, oh, you just can't do it like that. No, we're constantly trying to break that stigma.
I'm gonna learn fast vibrato, dang it. I've never done it before. I've never done it before, so it's really hard to do, but I'm going to learn how it's done.
I believe in you, man. I believe in you. So when it comes to pitch, you just named off like 3 different scenarios that if someone else heard that isn't a singer or a vocal teacher would think, oh, that person can't sing because they are not hitting the right pitch. It's like, no, there's so many other, there are very few instances. Honestly, I can't even think of a single instance that I would say someone is incapable of learning to sing, apart from just they don't want to. You know, if they don't want to put the work in.
Had 2.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, in 10 years, about over 600 students in person, over 7,000 online in my courses and stuff. That's a lot of students, man.
Yeah.
Almost 8,000 students.
Yeah.
2.
Wow.
1 actually had a physical limitation. Thankfully, it went away with therapy.
Okay.
But they had a lump that just wouldn't let them sing, and it was a swollen lymph node. And you know, I've heard vocal nodules. I've heard pulling a muscle, stuff like that.
Interesting.
That they got over quickly. This was like 6 months, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, 3. So I had another one that had laryngitis and lost his voice. So it's a medical condition. He couldn't sing for a whole year. He was actually a good singer before that.
Yeah.
And he was able to get his voice back. So I'm still not giving good examples here.
You're good. No, but I get it. I get what you're saying.
Just the idea of if there's a medical or some type of deformity or something that's physically holding you back,
That's
it
true.
will not let you. You can't, like, maybe it's something in your speech that you're noticing.
Yeah.
There are those instances, but they're very, very rare. The other one I've come across, which I feel bad for this guy because he got passed between vocal coaches. He got passed in our network between a bunch of different people because we're all wanting to help him.
Right.
But something was off in his learning ability.
Interesting.
No, I've had people on the spectrum. I've had definitely some learning disabilities. I don't know what they were because I didn't ask. But some people took years. They still progressed. It was baby steps. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This guy was like, let me show you some basics, real basic stuff. And he could not do it. Could not, period. Spent 2 hours with the guy. So 2 separate lessons. And he would try it and go like that. It's like, no, not like that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And then I passed him to one of my business partners and at the time.
Yeah.
And 20 minutes into that lesson, he gave the guy a refund. He has never done that before.
Wow.
Said, I don't know how to teach you. I'm just going to refund you your money. Pass him to someone else that I know that's more local that thanked me for the new student. And that didn't last, man. It's like this. It was an example of somebody that their learning disability was so severe, or at least from what I could tell, that they just couldn't learn it. So I'm talking about one student out of 7,000.
Yeah.
A lot of my students in my courses have asked me questions. They were struggling with things.
Right.
It's not that they couldn't learn it. It's that it takes time.
It does. That's
guy,
heart-wrenching, man. Yeah.
No matter what we tried, no matter how simple we made it, no matter how easy we made it, he could not do it.
Yeah. My heart goes out. I mean, wow. That's heart-wrenching, man. I feel bad now for for my comment, because it's like you're right. I mean, there definitely are instances. Yeah. Wow. Thanks for telling that story, man. Yeah, that's a
I've had
perspective.
I've had students that were frustrating to teach. I'm not saying they were a frustration. It's like I had a hard time teaching them because their ADD was through the roof, and mine's already through the roof sometimes. But I couldn't get through a sentence without them interrupting me and starting to sing. It's like I'm still trying to describe what I want you to do.
Right.
And after a couple of months with them, I would eventually let them go, and they'd learn stuff. It's just I walked away with way less energy than I started with. I had to let them go. It wasn't a good fit. I could teach them.
Yeah.
But still different than the guy that just could not learn. And here are 3 different vocal coaches talking about how never seen that before.
Wow.
And we didn't think that existed.
Wow. Yeah. No, but it takes. Yeah. Wow, man. That's interesting. That's crazy.
So I would say, and what I know about the guy, it's definitely a learning disability of some sort because it permeates a lot of things in his life, not just that.
Interesting.
So I've seen people overcome dyslexia. Yeah. Big time. Through starting simple. I've seen people overcome major physical limitations by starting simple. Yeah. I've seen my best friend, Michael Amade, who is now leading the Flying W Wranglers and has had a just as long of a music career as I have, like making money off of music his whole life, pretty much. Yeah. And so is most of his family. He had pediatric sarcoma as a kid, overcame it. He was among the 1% that survived. Wow. They did an experimental bone replacement thing with titanium and stuff. This whole section of his arm was replaced. Yeah. Wow. And he was told he would never be able to play guitar. Guess what? He does for a living.
Plays guitar, yeah.
Over 200 shows a year. Yeah. Wow. I think he did 260 last year. Plays guitar and sings.
Yeah, man.
So address the singing part. In martial arts, he fractured his larynx. He got punched in the neck just in sparring.
That scares the crap out of me.
Told he would never be able to sing again. Guess what he did? He got the two top vocal coaches. He was doing opera at the time. He got the two top vocal coaches in the nation.
Yeah.
Which happened to live here. And got his voice back.
Wow.
And now he's making albums. He's singing, 260 shows a year, like I said.
Wow. That's awesome.
Even a physical disability can be overcome. Even when the doctors are telling you, you will never be able to do this again, that can be overcome.
Oh,
You'll never be able to walk again. How many times have we heard that and seen people walk again?
Right, right.
So just to address that, to the people that think that if you think you have some sort of disability holding you back, rethink that.
Yeah.
It is so rare that you're going to be held back. So rare. Mm-hmm. And it might be harder for you, but it's not an impossible thing. Yeah. It just takes longer.
Yeah. That's powerful.
And determination.
That's powerful. I'm happy that was said, because it's
I used to have a friend in France that I was teaching about music career many years ago. Mm-hmm. And he has this disease that his hands don't cooperate. I forget what it's called. But when you're trying to use fine motor skills, it will not work. It like does the opposite of what you're wanting it to do.
Wow. Interesting.
He plays viola da gamba professionally.
What? That's so cool.
He uses a different technique than the classical technique, or what most people would use. But he figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Dude, that's amazing. I love that.
So the pitch thing, it's a listening skill. It's different than just vocal technique. Usually it's a listening skill, and that just takes time. And like any skill, it's repetition, it's constant correction, it's learning to adjust these fine motor skills. It's learning to, like I always say, it's like learning to write with your non-dominant hand. It's going to take you a while. Yeah. To really get some good handwriting down.
Right.
Real quick, I want to let you know about our Rock Singing Success community. If you want a place to discuss this topic further, or other topics, a place where you can improve your voice and your music career with courses and other resources, and even have a community of like-minded singers in rock and metal that are on the same path, those that support each other, encourage each other along the way, then join us at school.com/rocksingingsuccess. And that's SKOOL.com/rocksingingsuccess. Okay, so you had another student as well.
I had one more with this one, and then another student for sure. Excuse me. So I noticed, and I don't know if it's just in regards to the type of voice that he has or what, but I noticed that when it came to getting the voice to open up more, we couldn't start any lower than F sharp. Around F sharp. If he goes E3 and below, it didn't matter where his...
Okay, state that again. So F sharp, what's happening?
So we have to start most of his exercises around F sharp and F. If we go any lower, his voice will immediately got it. Okay. And I worked with him on just hey, and just getting that, and then I tried the opposite way, hey.
Okay.
But no matter what, it was he could do it on the F to F, F sharp to F sharp, G to G. But if we're going,
that's actually really good.
It is. No, it's fantastic. But then going the opposite direction, hey, and if we start on E, hey, and he'd have such a hard time with stability and keeping his voice stable. E3 and below. Anything, yeah. And it was just really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And it reminded me of different voice crossovers between men and women here too, because most women stop there. Although I've also had some women who go down that low, and I'm like, I've never heard that. I have a current student that sings that low, and I'm like, where is that coming from?
That's so
yeah, it's amazing. Okay, and the upper, so there's no problem through the E4. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is it stopping near the G sharp and A4? Like that range?
Uh, something we've been kind of consistently working at is he over lightens up his voice as he gets up there.
Ah, got
So
it.
we're getting him power. Yeah, I've given him multiple extra. He's getting better with it. So that's really not the issue. Right now
Okay.
it's his lower notes, specifically E3 and below. It's just and there's no stability. And we're trying our hardest to get him there.
If it's in a song and it's only for a split second, I
Mm-hmm.
usually tell a student just speak that. Just speak it. Because you've been in this singing position this whole time, you get this super low note, you're not going to suddenly go to speech. It doesn't
Right.
happen. You're still in a singing position. You just relax.
Yeah.
And
that makes
usually they can
sense.
sing maybe even up to a whole step below their normal range. I
Mhm.
have seen that as long as it's just one note and then it keeps moving.
Mm.
That's different though. The issue you're talking about is overall coordination.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, the higher you train, especially if
Mm-hmm.
you can get above that bridge, like above where they're stuck and start
Yeah.
to get more of those fine motor skills up there, when you train up high, it affects your lower range because you have
Yes.
way more motor skills to work with,
Yes.
fine motor skills. Right now, it sounds like it's too relaxed that it's just gross motor skills. So it's like big and clunky and
Yeah.
moving its weight around, and that doesn't work.
Right.
So I would say focus a lot more in that upper range and let them know. Let them know that's what's happening, that
Mm-hmm.
we need to develop more coordination, more fine motor skill movements so that you know how to stabilize the voice when it's low.
Mm-hmm.
To develop that fine motor skill, you got to work up high.
That makes sense.
So when they're pulling the voice, that's why I asked about their limitation up high. When they start to pull chests like that or start to tighten up or constrict even, they need way more cry, way more.
Yeah.
"Ah!" And I'm telling
Yeah.
you, you could work towards a yawn. That's worked for a few of my students thinking,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like this, where you're just yawning into the voice and even starting there and coming into the pitch. Or I had another student who just associated it with, well, he's like, lives just under New York. He lives really close to New York and
Oh,
has a
I
very
gotcha.
New York accent. So it's like, oh, it's like, hey, like, yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
it's like
Hey,
New
yeah.
York, hey. Like, yep, that's it. It was working for him.
Nice.
And it changed his voice and made it awesome up high, made it super clear.
Yeah.
What we tend to do once we get up to a block in our voice on a bridge like that
Mm-hmm.
is we'll either, well, like I said, I already said pull chest. That's yelling. Doesn't
Yeah.
sound like what he's doing. Sounds more like he's constricting. Or is it hyper twang? Is he going,
No,
and
he's
going
constricted.
forward?
It's
Okay,
yeah,
because
constricting.
that's the other thing I've seen is people trying to go forward with their voice, way forward.
Yeah.
And then you miss out on all the benefits of cry vocal mode, which is really what makes singing resonant.
Yeah.
If you just go twang, it's 100% muscle. So
Yeah.
that's not an answer either. So if he's constricting, you've got to work on light bridging.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to go through in head voice. If he's constricting in head voice, then that's another story. But I'll get to that in a second. So light bridging with a lot of whimper in the voice. Oh, like that sob and a top-down whimper. I'm thinking like, what was that, Rick Moranis from Ghostbusters? Or,
Yeah.
like the student I was just talking about, when I first taught it to him, he's like, oh, you mean like, I don't want to go to school today. Like, yes, that.
Yeah.
Overdo it. Listen to the lead singer of Leprous, especially
Yeah.
with songs like The Price or Below, where you can really hear the cry in his voice and try to mimic it. It's a lighter, well-cried voice. There's a few singers like that, but
Yeah. No,
over-cry it and then learn to relax into it. If he's struggling with head voice above that,
Mm-hmm.
he needs to play with head voice a lot
Yeah.
above that range.
Mhm.
Just really light, trying to clean it up. You know, if it's just, then he needs to get more forward and just try to make the lightest sound possible and see if he can develop it from there. I definitely had a student who went to air up high every single time, and he had to learn how to just constantly play with that head voice, see if he can get it lighter and more forward and mess with it in different ways until it started to compress without squeezing it.
Right.
And he developed that over time. If he's just going, then he's way too muscly. and needs to back off, needs to lighten up. And again, that's
Yeah.
just going back to super light cry. The straw helps with that, by the way. Straw
Yeah.
formations.
Love the straw.
NG can help with that as well. Puffy cheeks. It's just he's having to learn to bridge again.
Yeah.
And honestly, anybody that gets to that, man or woman up at that A4, is gonna have to learn to bridge it.
Yeah. He does a really good job with it. He actually bridges fairly well, I will say, but it's a lack of he well, that's a whole other issue, actually. And that's one I actually feel like I have a pretty good handle on it. But he's lacking that power up there. It's the cry. It really is just the cry. It does come down to cry.
I have
just,
another student, by the way, that you're reminding me of here with that for years, and he does have something holding him back mentally. He has a mental disability, but or I wouldn't call it a disability even. He's neurodivergent.
Oh, gotcha.
It's not a disability. My son's neurodivergent. Anyway, so getting up there, he was constantly around G sharp or A. He would get it. It built strength there. The next week it was gone. The total instability. And he had worked on strength exercises so much for so long. I know that he has the strength to do it. He just wasn't getting the right placement. So finally, this happened like 2 days ago. Like, okay, we need to overcry. It's like you want to go to the throat anyway to lower the larynx a little bit. And he likes that deeper sound just naturally for his voice.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's overcry. Let's do this. And do it a little bit lighter. Let's work on that mixed voice in that range. He could sing above the A beautifully and powerfully. Like he had this good amount of twang in it, this big open resonance. It sounded big, but it was easy to do.
Yeah.
G sharp, couldn't do it. Too much muscle every single time. So I got him going.
Nice.
Get it.
Yeah.
Get it totally. And so I'm like, okay, let's not go that far forward. Let's try to just add just the right amount of power that you like through that whole thing. I was like, wow, man, that's just from having that in his voice.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Dude,
so
that's
that's another thing about too. Usually, I would say about 80% of the time, and maybe more than that, it's cry. Cry is the answer.
I've learned that myself. It's funny you brought up was it Rick Moranis, Ghostbusters for for any younger listeners, maybe like young millennial Gen Zers. I had a friend who watched the show Regular Show a lot, and there's this character on there called Muscle Man. And whenever something happens to Muscle Man, he freaks out and he goes, and he screams like that.
So cut you out when you did that, dude.
Oh, hang on, I got to do this again. No, I got to hear it. So every time the original sound is on, so every time he something like would happen to him, and he, whatever, he would freak out and he go, and that's just his sound, right? So a buddy of mine was learning how to sing. And he wanted to be able to sing like way up in the high C area, whatever.
Yeah.
And I asked someone, he did it, and he did it so perfectly every single time. So finally I asked him, like, dude, how do you do this? Is back before I really learned how to do it myself. And I was like, how do you do that? Like, talk me through it. And he said, honestly, he's like, the show Regular Show, Muscle Man Scream? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I just wanted to do that. And then when I was trying to go up there, I noticed that if I did that up there, I got the sound I wanted. And I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, try it. And so I just went, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then I played around with it, and next thing, yeah. And I'm like, oh. So dude, it was so funny. It was just one of those weird things. Yeah.
Muscle Man. That's I don't know that show.
Dude, it's funny. It's
the only time I've heard Muscle Man was Muscle Man. But was it was the French name for He-Man.
That's so funny. Oh my god, that's funny.
That's interesting, man. No,
Yeah, dude, that was it.
for the younger generation listening that doesn't know the original Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
watch it. It's
Yes.
totally worth it. Wait till Halloween and watch it with the family. It's a
Yeah,
fun
man.
movie. It's
It's
a
so good.
timeless movie.
It is.
And that and like if you can stand musicals at all, especially really silly ones, um, Little Shop of Horrors with Rick Moranis
Love
as well.
Little Shop. Oh, dude. It's funny. I'm a musician. I'm a musical man myself, but I've never seen Little Shop. I need to watch it. I know, dude.
Suddenly Seymour. Yeah.
Suddenly see. I've sung it. I've sung it back to front, whatever you want to say about it. I love it. And dude, of course, as a musical theater tenor, like, of course I've sung Suddenly Seymour. And of course
It's hilarious, dude. You gotta
dude,
watch it if you're in a musical theater at all.
yeah, yeah.
That's one worth watching for sure.
Oh my God, dude. I actually just came up with a list of all the musicals that I need to watch and sent it to Bethany, my girlfriend, and she's a huge musical theater person, knows everything about the industry that I learned a lot from her, and yeah, she goes, "Oh, we need to watch all of these," and I'm like, "Yeah," and it's like all these basic like Les Mis, Little Shop, Rock of Ages, freaking Cabaret, all these shows that like you would
Dear
think.
Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen. I haven't seen Dear Evan Hansen. I've listened to it. Haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it yet either. I had a student who, and if I ever have to sing "Waving Through a Window" again, I'm just not gonna do it. Oh man! But that it's also a student who turned me on to John Bellion, not musical theater, but dude, that guy's an amazing singer. Especially his acoustic stuff is like absolutely mind blowing. But anyway. I want to address the last issue you're talking about as well.
Oh, for sure. This one actually, funny enough, you already brought up. You already mentioned in the. We'll talk about the last one. So I actually already kind of know what's going on with this one, but one of my students, we were training up, and we finally got her up past the E5, and I trained her up to F sharp 5, and I was like, "That's awesome." We needed to come back down after that because I wanted, yeah, I was super happy. And she's
it's like Barracuda.
Yeah, I was yeah.
Down. And of course I'm still getting over a cold, but down, just distorting.
Yeah,
anyway.
You got it. I know you got it. We know you got
my
it.
2-month cold. Oh.
Dude, it's the worst. I'm sorry. But so yeah, we got her up to the F sharp 5. Super happy with it. Brought her back down. F was fine. E started to get a little funky. And then E flat, she's like, "This is weird." She goes, "I feel like I lost it." And I thought about that. And my solution...
4 or 5?
5. Coming back
really
down.
High.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then she was struggling with coming back down, where before going up, she had it no problem. Coming back down, because she got past that bridge, and then coming back down, it was about, oh, wait a minute. And she was like, "I feel like I lost it." I'm like, well, how you sing this note acoustically is a little different than when you're coming into this note. They're so close to each other, but it's just a tiny bit different.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I think you already answered the question there, and I think I already know how to kind of work through it. It's really just a coordination thing. We just got to work on being able to work around that range consistently.
Well, it's a special coordination in that range, though, because you're going from head voice to whistle voice.
Yeah.
And when you think of the entire voice as a mix, what you end up having is the lower end of the range is a more chesty mix. It's still lifted. You still have the voice up here, but it's definitely like, like it's chesty. But I still have something happening up here. The higher range feels more like a heady mix. Even though you still had twang and you still make it sound super powerful, it's more heady, especially up in that range.
Oh,
yeah. Like that. It's going to feel more head voice and twangy.
Right.
And then once you get up higher than that, it starts to mix in whistle, which is not even singing anymore. It's like it's just a whistle from the glottis.
Where'd you go? That was an F6. Good job.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
If only I could do that particular note on command.
Right.
It just turns into whistle. And the higher you go, the more you're crossfading away from that chest voice, which is just barely a sound color anymore,
Yeah.
away from the head voice,
Yeah.
which it still feels a little bit heady, but it's just squeaking from the glottis. You can still add twang, like you can still add things to that, but it's mostly whistle now. So there's a different coordination structure. And I've seen so many students deal with the idea of going up across a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're in this whole new formant position that they get stuck in when they try to come back down.
Mm-hmm.
So even going up to like the C. Come on, man. It's like, what happened? You get stuck back there? Like, yeah. Like they're not following it back into place. And that takes time. And honestly, if they can do it one direction, not the other, that is awesome. That means that they actually have the coordination to do it. And in a song, they probably could totally do it in a song.
Yeah.
When you're sliding through that bridge, it's usually one direction that works and the other doesn't. For a while.
Yeah. And I understand, and that's kind of what I told her, and I was like, oh, because it was weird, because we're not used to that. I feel like we're used to when we go up, the notes going down, especially if we hit them once already. It's like, oh, that should be just as easy. But like you said, it's crossing that formant. You're changing the acoustics slightly enough. You're even between just two notes. That's why, in my experience, that's why like G, hey, was super easy. I can hit that every single day for the rest of my life. I don't care. It's always going to be there. A took me forever. Hey, and I had to change the approach.
Yep. And it's more heady.
It's just a whole step, and it's so frustrating. But like the amount of years I got stuck at G was scary, and like I was stuck at G for like 3 years easy.
Oh wow. So you were just trying to pull chest.
Yeah, man, exactly. Well, you were my teacher, that's all I did.
But learning how now like once you built strength through that bridge and you have the right coordination for it, it's about a C sharp or a D before you have to back away and it starts feeling more like head voice with twang. And I think I mentioned it in another episode that I've had a student who thought he was singing a song wrong. It's like, I just can't sing that C sharp, man. It's just not right. I had him sing it for me. It sounded awesome. It's like it didn't feel the same, so he thought it was wrong.
I get that so many times with so many students.
And one thing I want to say about whistle voice range, I already mentioned developing the fine motor skills by singing up higher. I get all of my students to sing whistle voice, at least attempt it and develop it, even if they never use it in a song, even if I never had them singing up there or doing vocal runs, at least they can go. If they can do that, they have a lot of control over compression.
Yes.
So whether that's for distortion or for just singing up higher with more ease, or is singing super low and being able to close off and get it more stable, whistle voice is amazing for that. And I do want to say the main way I teach develop that is I don't want to leave people just like, yeah, man, whistle voice, go figure it out. The main way, there's two ways. One stretches things out a lot, and it's just something you got to be very careful of not pushing. It's over crying like crazy just to get any sound. But if you're pushing that and pulling it a whole lot into cry, it's too much. Like, you got to learn to relax that as soon as possible. The biggest way I've seen, though, is starting with a very light closure, just going up high and going, I'm just closing, and I'm trying to get the bare minimum sound to come out and keep it as closed as possible. So I'm not squeezing it closed. I'm just stopping the breath and slowly, very, very slowly releasing. So going, and I'm doing a super high note again. And I know I can't do that on command right now. Like, I can go up to a C6 normally. Not the sixth octave from there, though.
Yeah.
So what happens as soon as you get that squeak, bring it down to a pitch you're familiar with, or more comfortable with. So if it goes, now you have more control. You brought it down to a pitch.
Yep.
And that's still in that fifth octave. That was an F sharp 5. So it's still in the whistle voice range. It's above the D sharp or E5. Still whistle voice.
Yeah.
But I brought it down to something I can more easily control. So just above closure, which is going to go through a little fry and then start to squeak, like squeezing the end of a balloon. That's what you're doing. Like that is whistle voice.
I gotta laugh. No, it's funny. No, you're right. Another pop culture reference, because I heard that and I was like, I've heard that exact sound somewhere. It's a Key and Peele sketch where dude, they're so funny. And it's the Megan sketches. I don't know if you remember that, where he's like chasing her. I was like, Megan, you forgot your coat. And like whenever he like goes to walk away, he'll look back and he'll just go. And it has like the same exact sound. That's why and then he turns like and then walks back away. Oh god. Anyway, you haven't watched Key and Peele.
I mean, so going back to some older bands, even was David Lee Roth and Van Halen would make that sound all the time.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, it's helpful. It's just funny whenever I hear these things, and you could connect them to a pop culture reference of some kind. I feel like it helps to really conceptualize, because you're taking these techniques out of the context of singing, which seems like a really, really tricky skill, which it is, but it isn't. It's just a lot of silly sounds that work on putting the voice together, and you put them in reference to something that isn't connected to singing, and it's like, oh, it's the same concept. It's a way to train that. So yeah.
I have a student I call AA Ron. Thank you, Key and Peele.
It's good, dude. It's so funny. Again, if you haven't seen Key and Peele, which I don't know who hasn't, but if you haven't, definitely go watch some sketches. Go to
They're
YouTube.
hilarious.
They're so funny. So funny. We are not sponsored. We just like them. Because we're not sponsored because they're not a troupe anymore. They're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Thanks, man. No, that's super helpful.
That's super helpful too. I'm glad we got to do this.
Same, man.
So
Same.
I'll split this. I'll figure out what to do with this.
For sure. No, this is good stuff.
Cool, man. Now remember, if you want a place to discuss this topic further and other topics too, a place where you can improve both your voice and your music career with courses and other cool resources, unlockable resources even, and a community of other rock and metal singers on the same path. We'll support you, encourage you along the way, just a cool community to be with. Then join us at school.com/rock singing success. Now, over my last 30 years as a professional performing musician, music career coach, and rock singing coach, I've helped hundreds of in-person students and thousands of students in my courses. So I created the Rock Singing Success community to offer you even more help on your journey. Again, that's school.com/rock singing success. That's SKOOL.com/rock singing success. Join us there. Let's continue this discussion. See you there.